Okay, let's look at Chapter 2 and let's work some problems um, that'll be useful for you to know how to do if you're going to understand uh, the concepts in Chapter 2. And the primary concept is, of course, how to allocate or how to determine or calculate predetermined overhead rate, and then how to use it in determining the cost of a job, a product cost. Um, so here we have, and I suggest that you take a pencil and pad and write this information down because we'll be referring to it. I'll take a picture of it or do something. Of course, I'll scroll back up and down, but again, it may be nice to have it in front of you also, so you can refer to it readily. Here we have a company that manufactures something, and it has two departments, molding and fabrication. And we're going to look at only two jobs that took them all month to do, just for the sake of illustrations here. Job P and Job Q. And here we see the machine hours for each department in total, and the fixed overhead and the variable overhead. And variable overhead is based on machine hour. Now, in this example, machine hours is going to be used to determine the plant-wide or factory-wide predetermined overhead rate, and it will be used to determine the predetermined overhead rate for each department. Now I want you to write this down and go back and study it. If you go back to the PowerPoint slides for Chapter 2, which I've already uploaded for you and included my narrative or my audio, if you go and look at slides 30 through 37, they will give you an example there that's not here in this problem. They will show you two departments, and the allocation base will be different. Was different for each of those departments. One was machine hours and one was labor hours. And you're going to see, that's what you're going to see on the exam, basically. You're going to see two or three departments using more than one allocation base. Now, in this example here, they're using the same allocation base, that is machine hours. And if this is a good problem for illustration purposes, but I want you to be aware, I'm telling you now, that you need to go back and study if you need to, slides 30 through 37 of Chapter 2 PowerPoint slides, which includes my audio, my narrative, and they have two bases for allocation bases. Again, one was machine hours and one was direct labor hours. But with that in mind, again, we have this information before us right now, and we see the two jobs, the direct material, direct labor costs, and so forth. For the first 8 questions, we're going to use a plant-wide or factory-wide predetermined overhead rate, and thereafter it'll be by department. Okay, so let us proceed to the first question. There we go. What was the company's plant-wide predetermined overhead rate? Now, bear in mind that you look at the variable overhead is different for each department. $2 versus $2.80 per machine hour. So what you're going to have to do is determine them individually, add them together, and then divide by the total machine hours. And you'll come up with $9.15. Now let's look at the details of how that was done. Well, you look at the first department, molding, and you get the fixed cost. You have to use the formula y equals ax plus b, a plus bx. A is the fixed cost, is the $2 rate per machine hour, and x is the number of machine hours. So you get $16,500. You see the math there? It's really plain. It's right here in front of you, folks. That's for molding. Then you're going to go to the fabrication department and do the same thing. You're going to take the fixed cost and you're going to add the variable portion, 2.8 times 1,500, and we get 20,100. Now what we're going to do, we're going to add them both together to get the total manufacturing overhead cost, which is $36,500 or $600, and then you're going to divide it by the total machine hours. That's how you have to do that problem. Now, you will see a problem like this on an exam. You're going to see plant-wide and individual department and everything, so just make sure you understand this. So now we know that the predetermined overhead rate is $9.15 per machine hour. Okay? So the question becomes now, let's move on down. How much manufacturing overhead was applied to job P and then to job Q? How much overhead was applied? Well, let's go back up to job P and job Q. Now, the overhead rate is based on machine hours. And so for job P, we have 3,500 machine hours between both departments and 2,900 machine hours with job Q. So what do you think you do? We already determined that the predetermined overhead rate was $9.15. Now we know how many machine hours and overhead, and the overhead applied is based on machine hours. So you're going to multiply the $9.15 times each of the overhead machine hours, rather. Okay? And this is where the numbers came from. See that? 3,500 hours and 2,900 hours, each multiplied by $9.15. So that's the overhead that you're going to apply. You're going to apply that much overhead spread out over all the jobs that you anticipate doing. That is the total overhead applied plant-wide. Okay. Number 3, what was the total manufacturing cost assigned to job P? The total manufacturing cost. Well, we already calculated the overhead, right? 32,500. See that right there? 32,025. I don't know where to get the 500 from. 32,025. Don't forget then, it said the total manufacturing cost. That means you have to add direct labor and direct material. And I'm not going to scroll up here, hopefully you've written it down, but they'll show you here also. So it's $76,825 because there was $19,000 worth of direct material. There's your direct labor, and that's your overhead we just calculated. So that's the total product cost, manufacturing cost of job P. And you guessed it, they're going to ask you the same thing for job, I should ask you for job Q, I guess that'll come later. Now they said if job P consisted of 20 units, then what is the unit cost? Well, if 20 units cost $76,825, then one unit would be that number, $76,825. 825 divided by 20, right? And there you go. Now, it really comes out to $3,841.25. It says round your final answer to the nearest whole dollar, so it will be 38.41. You know, if it's 49 cents or less, it's the whole dollar. If it's 50 cents or more, then you round up to the next dollar. So since it came up to 38.41.25, then it's 38.41. Had it been 38.41.50, then it'll be 38.42. Just to make that clear to you. I'm a big fan of going right down to the penny, but this is fine, and I'll make sure that on the exam it'll be clear to you what I want. Oh, what's the unit price? Oh, yeah, they showed that to you. Okay, yeah, divided by 20. Okay. Number 5. What's the total manufacturing cost assigned to job Q? Well, again, same thing. We already calculated the overhead, which was $26,535. Then you're going to add the direct labor and direct material, which comes to $20,900. Add all that together, you get $47,435. And how they get it, there you go. Okay? So they're asking for the total manufacturing cost, so don't forget to include direct labor and direct material. Some students forget that. You know, again, product cost, manufacturing cost includes direct labor, direct material, and applied overhead. Applied manufacturing overhead, to be more exact. Because you can have overhead that's administrative, that's not part of product cost. Okay? Alrighty. Let's go to number 6. And it's a simple problem again, like before. Number 6 will ask you, okay, we got 30 units. Well, if all 30 jobs had a product cost of total manufacturing cost of $47,435, then one unit would be that divided by 30, which is 1581. It comes to 1581.17. Again, since it's less than 50 cents, it's 1581 then. Okay? Now, number 7, marketing up by 80%. Now, there's 2 ways to do it. We'll look at that way, and then I will also show you, to me, a simpler way to determine markup. So in other words, whatever the cost is, they're going to mark it up 80%. They're going to tack another 80% of the cost onto it, and that will be the selling price. And then they're going to ask you what's the selling price in total, and then what's the selling price per unit. So here we're dealing with job P and job Q, both jobs. And these are the answers here. Okay? Now how did they get that? Well, let me show you how they do it. See, they took the 76,825 and then multiplied it by 0.8, which is 80%, which is $61,460, and then added those two together. But folks, take a calculator out right now. You should have one handy anyway. This is right, accounting, right? If you were to take 76,825 times 1.80, you get the same answer, 138,285. It just saved you a step, because multiplying it by 1.8 is the same as adding 80%. In other words, if someone says I want to mark it up by 25%, then multiply the multiply it by 1.25. If you're going to mark it up by 17%, then multiply it by 1.17. So you can do it this way. Multiply it by 80% or wherever I ask you to do, whatever the percentage markup is, and then add the two numbers together, or simply save yourself some time in a step by multiplying it by 1 point or whatever the percentage markup is, so long as it's under 100%. Then you got to do something a little different, but this way is safe. So again, if you take 47,435 and multiply it by 1.8, you're going to get 85,383. Okay? Unless I specifically ask, what is the markup in dollar amount? Then you'd have to do it the way they're showing it here. And then you say, okay, the markup is $61,460 or whatever. But if I just want the total selling price, and I say it's marked up by a certain percentage, you can do it the way I'm suggesting. In any event, and since there's 20 units and 30 units, you simply divide. And so the selling price for each unit, and again, it really comes out to $6,914.25, or $69.14, and the same with $2,846.10, so $2,846. I'm asking you to round to the nearest whole dollar, and that's fine. I'm asking you to do the same, or not. Okay. If I ask you to do it to the penny, then you would do that. But we'll see. Okay. Number 8. What was the cost of goods sold for March? Think about that first of all, folks. Cost of goods sold. What did it cost? What's the total cost? Well, we know, if you scroll back up to here a little bit, this is the manufacturing cost for job P and job Q, and it only had 2 jobs. So what's the cost of goods sold? Think about it. It's the sum of those two. Just add those two together. $124,260, right? The cost of goods sold is the sum of the total manufacturing cost. Okay? Alright, now we're going to get into doing it by department. Okay? What were the company's predetermined overhead rates in the molding department and the fabrication department? Now they're asking you to determine it by department, not plant-wide, but by individual department. Well, if we go back up here to the top, we see for the molding department, the fixed cost is $11,500. And the variable portion is $2 times $2,500. So we know that the total overhead, both fixed and variable, is $16,500. How do we get that? Again, $11,500 plus 2 times $2,500, which is $5,000. So the total overhead for molding is $16,500. And therefore the predetermined overhead rate would be $16,500 divided by the machine hours of 2,500. And that will give you $6.60. So let's go down to number 9. And it's $6.60. And for the fabrication department, it's $13.40. And this shows you how they arrived at that. See that? This is the overhead for the molding department. This is the overhead for the fabrication department, and you divide it by the machine hours. Okay, there you are. Again, this is doing it by individual departments. Now, again, as I want to let you know again, go back to the PowerPoint slides 30 through 37, because here they're using the same allocation base for both departments, namely machine hours. On the exam, I promise you, each department will have a different allocation base, but the procedure is the same. It will be the same. You will calculate the total overhead for each department and divide it by the specific allocation base that I stipulate. Okay? Alrighty. Let's go to problem 10. How much manufacturing overhead was applied to the job in the molding department for jobs P and Q? Well, we know that the predetermined overhead rate for molding is $6.60. So you just multiply that by the number of machine hours. And so we get 15,180 and 92,640. There you go. You see, the molding department overhead rate was $6.60, and that was the number of machine hours in job P. If we scroll up, you'll see that this is the number of machine hours for job P and job Q. All right, just to make sure you see that, let's go back up here. See, machine hours for job P. For molding, 2,300. For fabrication, it was 1,200. But for molding, it was 2,300 and 1,400 multiplied by 660. Okay? And so logically, they're going to ask you now the same thing for fabrication for both jobs. The fabrication was $13.40 predetermined overhead rate. And of course, it was 1,200 machine hours for job P and 1,500 for job Q in the fabrication department. Okay? Be sure to read it carefully here. They're asking for the applied overhead for fabrication for each job. And up there was molding for each job. Okay? Alrighty. We're moving right along, aren't we? Hopefully we're moving at a pace that and of course you can always come back and listen to this over and over again if you wish, particularly if you like the sound of my voice. I'm just kidding. Anyway, job P, if it has 20 units, well, what's the unit product cost, the total product cost? Don't forget, if you were to, what you're going to have to do for job P, what you're going to have to do is take the cost, direct labor and direct material, don't forget that, because we're talking about product cost, and the overhead for molding and the overhead for fabrication. Add those two together and you get, so the overhead for job P is $31,260. Where do we get that from? Get that. Molding, the overhead was $15,180, and for the fabrication it was $16,080. Add them together, that's your overhead for job P plus your direct labor and direct material gives you $76,060, and then you divide by 20. You get 3,803. Now here's the details here. That's your direct labor and direct material right there. Don't forget that. This was the overhead for manufacturing overhead for molding and for fabrication. We figured those out. Add them together. That's the total overhead, $31,260, plus the direct labor and direct material. That's your total product cost. for job P. Excuse me, and divide by 20. Study, look at this. Okay? We had to add an extra step. We had to figure out the total from both departments, molding and fabrication for job P, using the appropriate predetermined overhead rates. One was 660, the other one was 1340. So this 15,180 is what? 2,300 machine hours times 6.60. The 16,080 is the 1,200 machine hours in fabrication times 1340. Okay? Alrighty. Job Q, same thing, product cost. Okay? Don't forget job Q. What was that? Same process. Let me show you. This is direct labor, direct material, or direct material, direct labor. This 9,240, where did that come from? That's 1,400 machine hours times 660. And the 20,100 is 1,500 machine hours times 1340 for the fabrication department. And add those two together. And divide by 30. Well, after you add the direct labor and direct material, of course, too. Okay? Okay. And we're almost there, folks. So 2 more. Again, the 80% markup, same process. Same process. Okay? That's right there. I mean, that's, and I think I went over that in great detail before. Same process. And then the cost of goods sold is simply what? The 76,060 plus the 50,240 is 126,300. Okay? Now, something I want to bring to your attention, the 2 different methods. One method was plant-wide, company-wide, or plant-wide rather. The other one was by individual departments. The cost of goods sold plant-wide would be 124,260. By individual department, it came out to be 126,300. A difference of a little more than $1,000, almost $2,000. And that may not seem like a lot, but in some jobs, industry, it could mean the difference. Which do you think is more accurate? Well, typically, going by the individual department tends to be more accurate. And so on an exam, I may ask you to do it both ways, plant-wide and then by individual department, and ask you what is the difference between the two in terms of dollars. Anyway, that's it for today, for this lesson anyway. And I'm hoping that things were clear. You can always email me or email the SI to get additional clarity.